All right, welcome back, family. Welcome back to the Kingdom of Israel. Um, we're going to keep this thing going, Prophecy 2026. We're going into the last days. And as normal, for those that this may be their first time coming to the channel, thank you all for coming into the live. But we're not going to deal with religion, right? Like Catholicism, Christianity, Judaism. We're not going to deal with it from that standpoint. We're going to talk about this from the standpoint of the true heritage, the people. And we're going to look at these verses that are in the Bible, and we're going to look at how they fit for what's actually happening today. And we're also going to we're going to deal with this from the standpoint of the allegory, right? The allegory, the parable, right? Breaking it down so that you can make sense of what the verses are saying and that you can actually apply these things to your life. All right. So I got a lot of verses that I need to get through. Thank you all for coming into the live. I have a lot of verses I need to get through. So I think I need to just go ahead and without wasting any time, just jump right into it. But again, appreciate you all for coming in. And I'll say you share the live and repost the live. So when we talk about the last days, the question, is, can you not see that these are the last days? And it's as if some people do not consider that the world we're living in is going to come to an abrupt end. It's as if folks think that this, the atrocities that we're facing, as if it's just going to continue, nonstop. So how are you preparing yourself for the change, right? For the change in mind, for the change within the state of this world that we're living in, right? These things are going to change, okay? So these are the last days. Can you not see it? Are you preparing yourself for it? Or do you think this is just what it's going to be? So let's start off with 2nd Ezra 15 and 51. All right, thank you all for coming into the live. You can tap the screen. That part doesn't cost anything, right? You share the live and repost the live. Also, when you tap the screen, that just show, that you are showing your support for the live. But it says, behold, speak thou in the ears of my people the words of prophecy. These are the things that we need to hear. Prophecy. He said, which I will put in thy mouth, saith the Lord. He said, and cause them to be written on paper. So folks today have an issue with these scriptures being on paper. But it's so that we can have a record that we're able to then look to understand that these writings are true. But again, it's as if a number of people do not consider that things are going to change. He said, put it on paper. He said, for they are faithful and true. Number 3, he says, fear not the imagination against thee, because when you start talking about prophecy or the end of the world, now, when I say the end of the world, you all, I'm not talking about the end of life, right? The end of the world just speaks to this world as we know it within all of its chaos and corruption. It's over. It's ending, right? And the world of righteousness is coming into position and to play. But in order for that to take place, there are a lot of people that truly love this world with all of its corruption. And they don't want it to end because of the benefits that they receive within the convenience. So for people that speak against this convenience, there's a hate for that conversation and for the people that bring about these prophetic woes. And they make anyone that's speaking with respect to the end of evil and wickedness and unrighteousness, it's something to where, like I said, you just become the enemy. But in all honesty, you all, this is what you will call a good news, because who wants to keep living through oppression? Who wants to keep experiencing disease? Who wants to keep drinking polluted water and food? Who wants to deal with, just this whole thing where the earth is in decline? But unfortunately, there are those that truly, live to keep the chaos going. But he says, fear not the imagination against thee. He says, let not the incredulity of them trouble you that speak against thee. He said, for all the unfaithful shall die in their unfaithfulness. Number 5, he says, behold, saith the Lord, I will bring plagues upon the world, the sword, famine, death, and destruction. And you all, these are the things that we're truly witnessing as we're talking about prophecy. And we're faced right now with the last days. And for some folks, they say, oh man, y'all been talking that, for over 3,000 years, 4,000 years, 6,000 years. And some people have become numb to the fact of what's happening right before their eyes. Okay? But he said, I will bring famine, death, and destruction. He said, for wickedness have exceedingly polluted the whole earth. This is what you hear me talking about. These are the last days. Can you not tell? These are the last days. Do you not see how within the unrighteousness it has polluted the whole earth? The entire earth has been tagged by this corruption. And it can't continue in this manner. Everything is in decline. He says, for wickedness have polluted the whole earth, and their hurtful works are fulfilled. Therefore, say the Lord, their hurtful works are fulfilled, meaning there's only so much that's going to take place, and then you have the impact to the collapse. And for a number of you, you're so reactionary, it's like you're waiting until you see the impact. But upon the collapse, you all, it's too late. So this is a time that we should be able to look at the prophetic writings. We should be able to hear and understand these words within truth, that we can prepare ourselves within righteousness. So he said, therefore saith the Lord. Number 8, I will hold my tongue no more touching their wickedness. This is the point apart that when it comes to that climactic end, we have not seen it just yet, but based on the prophecy, this is something within faith that we can depend on. He said, when they profanely commit, neither will I suffer them in those things, in which they wickedly exercise themselves. He said, behold, the innocent and the righteous cry unto me, and the souls of the just complain continually. And this is what we're faced with, this constant battle. When is it going to be over? Why? Is it appearing to be in existence for so long? This is the innocent. This is the righteous that are crying out, understanding and knowing something ain't right. And this can't continue on. Number 9, he says, and therefore saith the Lord, I will surely avenge them and receive unto me the innocent blood from among them. This is just saying they're not going to get away with it. So for all that we see and all that we're witnessing, they're not going to get away with it. Like, God is not going to make America great again. In fact, America is at its end. And all of the world governments and this interworking or internetworking of governments, this thing has come to its end because none of it is dealing appropriately. It cannot be sustained. 2 Corinthians 4:3. He says, but if our gospel be hid, it's like for these things that I'm talking about, if you don't understand it, it said it is hid to them that are lost. If you can't understand what I'm saying, it's just because you're lost. You don't want to understand it. You enjoy the disruption. You enjoy the chaos. You want this world within corruption to continue. So these things that I'm saying to you, they'll never make sense. He said, but if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost, in whom the God of this world have blinded their minds. So the God of this world would be what you call that evil or that devil or that man with his knowledge, with his wisdom, with his institutional education, with the concept of pragmatism, psychologically dealing with us through oppression. These things have blinded your mind, right? He says, in whom the God of this world have blinded their minds, have blinded the minds of them which believe not. He said, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine upon them. So I have to stop there and deal with the semantics because, again, those words like God and Christ, this makes people think you're diving into religious dogma, okay? And that's not my intent. My intent is to show you how these words reign true to this day, and we need to understand how to apply them to our life. So when we talk about the glorious gospel of Christ, so first of all, the glorious is talking about the famous, the well-known, the renowned. The gospel of Christ is talking about the gospel of righteousness. Okay? When it says, who is the image of God? The image of God is talking about the process and or the thing that we must do. Because as I've said to you, when you talk about God, God is the thing you serve, right? And in this day, as he said, the God of this world. So for the thing you serve is your God. If you're serving within unrighteousness, then that is your God. If you're serving within righteousness, then that is your God. The image of that is the thing that you do. Now, most folks, when you say image, they're thinking of a picture of some sort. But for those of you that are familiar with the corporate world, or let's just say a government entity, if you work for a particular company or within a certain government entity, and you go out and you do a certain thing within your behavior, you can be reprimanded for that. And they'll tell you the thing that you did, they'll say it hurt the image of the company. So the image is based on these actions, the things that you do, okay? Who is the image of God, which should shine on them, meaning the outlook of righteousness would be received by you. John 5:38. He said, and ye have not his word abiding in you. So you don't have his word abiding in you if you're not looking to understand the steps that are applied to righteousness. He says, and you have not his word abiding in you, from whom he hath sent, talking about those things within righteousness. When the conversation of prophecy comes about, the discussion of righteousness come about, you turn your head. You huff at it. I don't want to hear that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Because you're in tune with the God of this world. But yet you think you have a relationship with God, or you think you're spiritual, or you come up with all sorts of nonsense to convince yourself to keep serving within your lust, which shows the addiction that we have to corruption, to wickedness. A number of us are not truly understanding, like, to the degree that that addiction has a hold on us, because we were born into this wickedness. So in order to get off of it, it's like we have to wean ourselves off of it one day at a time, one step at a time, one day at a time. First of all, we have to acknowledge the addiction, because some folks don't feel as if anything is wrong, or as if anything has ever, been wrong. Right? But he says, and you have not his word abiding in you, for whom he hath sent. He says, him you believe not. So talking about righteousness, you don't believe it. In 39, he says, search the scriptures. But they told you that book is fake. The white man wrote it. King James was a homosexual. They tell you all these things to keep you out of the scriptures, but the scriptures are a record to be searched, to be scrutinized. When you look at the prophecy, when you look at the principles that are within it. But a majority of you haven't taken the time to do that because you enjoy the lust. You're in tune to your addiction. Searching the scripture doesn't benefit the convenience that they've given to you for in this life. But he says, search the scriptures. He says, for in them you think you have eternal life. See, here's the other thing. This is upon my inspection. This is how I know they didn't write these words, because I'm explaining to you now their end, their destruction. Do you think they would have written in their destruction if they wrote this? It would be told and or explained totally different. So it has been preserved. And because these things were hidden, they did make it into this day and time that we can have this conversation, and a truth can, or the truth can be revealed. And it will explain itself as I go on. I think I'm getting ahead of myself. But he says, search the scriptures, for in them you think you have eternal life. So in the scriptures, we can find the standards for righteousness. Where else are you going to find them? In a world that's centered around corruption and wickedness, do you think they have institutions that are set and or positioned to help us understand righteousness? They don't. Those things have been subdued, pushed to the side. Okay? But for in them you have eternal life. He says, and they are they which testify of me. In these writings, it speaks specifically about what righteousness is and how to achieve eternal life. You all, I'm explaining the allegory, right? A number of people read these things, literally, and they try to deal with it from that sense of understanding. Well, I'm dealing with this from the standpoint of the allegory, the hidden message within the writings. I'm explaining this from the standpoint of the parables. Okay, again, so that you can make sense of these words and know how to apply them to your life, because for years, ages and generations. Folks have read these words and just have read over them, not being able to wholly apply them to your life or to a point to where you can understand it, that you can act on it. And this is why we're not dealing with the tenets of religion. Because the religions, you all, these things were made by men. These things are in position and or place to continue handicapping individuals. Okay. He says, search the scriptures, for in them you think you have life, and they are they which testify of me. He says, and ye will not come to me that you might have life. In other words, he's saying, you won't come to righteousness that you can be sustained and have eternal life. You're banking on the world that you see in front of you as if that's legit. Meaning you think it's proper. You think it's appropriate. You consider it to be just. So when it comes to righteousness, he's saying, you won't look for it. You won't consider it. He says, and you will not come to me. You will not seek out righteousness, because that's how you have life. He says that you may have life. He says, I receive not honor of men, meaning it don't matter how much money you got, because in this world, if you got Elon Musk money, then you may have a different favor with how you're treated. But when it comes to the sense of the state of righteousness, we do not. It does not. Righteousness does not look at the honor of men. It looks at your ability to perform within the standard or the principle of righteousness. If you can't do it, don't give a damn how much money you got. In 42, he says, but I know you, that ye have not the love of God in you. This is talking about those that are fixed within living according to the standards of this world, serving the God of this world. This is why it's so funny when I see the entertainers and the award winners, when they get up there and they say, I want to thank God. They're not thanking the God of righteousness. They're thanking the God of their corruption. They're thanking the God of this world. Because even when you look at Luke 4:6, what you call a devil, which is nothing more than a man itself, he explains, I will give you fame. I will make life good for you. He says, I've been given a limited degree of power. And I can use my power to help those that'll walk with me. He said, but if you want this glory that I have for you, if you want the fame that I have for you, he said, there's one requisite. He said, you have to serve me. And I think we overlook that requisite. What does it mean when he says you have to serve me? Because so many people want to think or believe they worship God. But worship is another word for serve. And if you look at the way you conduct yourself or the things that you do, and you've not yet identified what the tenets of righteousness are, and you're just going off of how you've been educated, brought up, and what you've learned from your world experiences, I'm going to guarantee you that you're serving corruption unbeknownst to you. You're serving a God that your fathers of antiquity did not know within righteousness. Acts 17:5, you all. He said, but the Jews believe not, right? Or you can look at the people within the world today as we're bringing this conversation out. They don't believe it. He said, they moved with envy and took them certain lewd fellows. So here again, remember when we opened up and he said, don't be afraid, of them and their imagination and how, they would seek to come after you. So here we're seeing throughout time, whenever you move to have this conversation within righteousness, there are those that will move against you. And we have that still to this day, even within the sense of the body politic, the governmental systems. They set up these COINTELPRO type organizations to make certain that no one interrupts, their system of corruption. He says certain lewd fellows of the baser sort. Baser sort. They don't have the intelligence of righteousness. Baser sort. And gathered a company and set all the city on an uproar. So they go out and they'll assassinate your character. They'll demonize, the concept that you're speaking about, and they'll use the media. They'll do everything that they need to do to bring everybody in an uproar or to turn the mindsets against a concept that's wholesome. They said, and assaulted the house of Jason and sought to bring them out to the people. So the assault on the house of Jason would be very much similar, to anyone that stands to speak within the ideals of correction. They'll send the feds to your house. They'll have you, arrested. And they'll want to make a public example of you. Number 6, he says, and when they found them not, they drew Jason and certain brethren unto the rulers of the city, crying, these are they that have turned the world upside down and come here also. So the whole point to this and what I'm pointing out is the only thing that have changed are the faces of the people. But the energy based on the principalities is still the same. Even then, they were dealing with corrupt rulers. No different than today, we're dealing with corrupt rulers. He said, these are they that have turned the world upside down, meaning they're trying to employ righteousness, which is going to mess up our business, our free market, and the way that we're doing things within the democracy. So let's charge them with political crimes. There'll be political prisoners or whatever. We can charge on them to stop their mouth. As it said, we do not wrestle with flesh and blood, you all. We wrestle with the principles. We wrestle against the principle. It was that way then. It's still happening now. All we're dealing with is just different faces. This is what makes these writings, so valuable when we can look at them and come to understand truly when you come to live this life as it pertains to wholesomeness, don't expect no favors from the world. They're not going to have a loving eye, face, or word for you. It will then be the whole aim and or intent to stop you. This is why when you look at the outset of these religions that they've put in place, Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism, these things aren't real. They work in conjunction with the world. They set it up. Proverbs 25 and number 2, you all. It is the glory of God to conceal a thing. So we're talking about how so much within righteousness has been hidden over the years. And even when you talk about these writings, how they were preserved, the truth within what was written was hidden to those that did not have the true comprehension, or for those that it was meant to be able to tell this story. But they preserved it, looking at how they could manipulate it. And they did a very good job. You have to give them kudos. Masterful work. So it says, it is the glory, meaning God is known. He's famous. Glory is a word interchangeable with like fame, renown, right? Of God to conceal a thing. But the honor of kings is to search out a matter. So if you're someone that's in a position of notoriety, it's like first, you're supposed to search out the principles of righteousness that you can then lead others in that manner and or that way. Do they do that? No, they don't. They don't search out the manners of righteousness. No, they're into corruption. They want the edge. They want the advantage. Right? Let me go real quick to John 5 and 46. He says, for if you have believed Moses, you would have believed me. Just making the connection, you all, that says within the standards of righteousness, if you're looking at the law that was presented even unto Moses, and you understand that, then you can understand what I'm talking about. But because the majority of you are in tuned to the ways of this world, you're like, a law of Moses, what's that? All you know are the laws and the statutes of the United States government or whatever country that you live in. Those are the things that you're familiar with. He says, for had you believed Moses, you would have believed me. As we're talking about righteousness, he says, for he wrote of me. Looking at the allegory, looking at it in the sense of a parable, he wrote of me. He wrote of righteousness. He wrote to that thing which is wholesome and upright. He said, but if you believe not his writings, like if you can't understand these writings that we're talking about, he said, now, how shall you believe my words? So these things that I'm pointing out as it pertains to righteousness, it just doesn't align. It doesn't jive with you. Thank you all for coming into the live. I say tap the screen. That part doesn't cost anything. That's how you share. That's how you show your support for the live. All right, we're going to go to Jeremiah 2 and 3. And what we're doing is we're going into the writings in the Bible, and we're dealing with it not from the literal sense, but we're going into the allegory. Allegory means the hidden part, the secret. As he said, you know, God is famous for hiding things, and he hides them. It's like that story about the sword being in the stone. If you weren't of the lineage, you know, to take the sword out of the stone, you couldn't move it. And these writings are the same way. Although they've been preserved, you have a lot of people that were dealing with them and just didn't know what it was. So they made up something. And they used it to confound and or to control an entire world. Right? But that imagination, those lies, that corruption it has to come down because truth must prevail. Jeremiah 2:3, you all. He says, Israel was holiness unto the Lord. Now, when I say Israel, I ain't talking about Netanyahu and the state of Israel and those imposters over there acting, like they're somebody they're not. Okay? It's understood, and we know, that they stole the heritage. Okay? That's not a secret. All right? He said, Israel was holiness unto the Lord, and the first fruits of his increase, meaning this was the first people that he ever dealt with from the sense of a nation. Before that, God or the Creator, the Lord, however you look at it, never dealt with an entire nation. He always then dealt with an individual based on the seed or the sons of God. Right? So this people of a nation called Israel, these were the first fruits. He says, all that devour them shall offend, meaning these are his chosen people. And for those that trespass against his chosen people, he says, they will be dealt with. And I know for a number of you, you're like, but we don't see it. We don't get it. It's not happening. And there's a reason, for that, because of our disobedience. But we're bringing ourselves back into alignment. And this is what the world, and when I say world, I'm talking about the other nations, understanding and knowing who the true stewards of the world are. You may not understand or know, but trust and believe these heads of states within these other nations, they know. And they work together to keep the true stewards of the world from rising to power and or position, because that means they would have to step down. And they're not ready. They're not willing to just give it up and step down just because. That goes to what Job said, 9:24. The world is in the hand of the wicked. He says, all that devour them shall offend. He says, evil shall come upon them, saith the Lord. So for all those heads of state and all of those world leaders and other nationalities that have committed these atrocities, they're going to receive the judgment. They're not going to escape. He said, hear ye the words of the Lord, O house of Jacob, and all the families of the house of Israel. And once again, we're not talking about no state of Israel. That's fake. Okay? That's not a real thing. It's made up. It's like the religions. That came out of their imagination. Thank you all for coming into the live. He said, thus saith the Lord, what iniquity have your fathers found in me? That part. Because we're trying to figure out, if we're such a great people, why do we have such a hard time? We have to look at the iniquity of our fathers. We have to look at our own iniquity. But look at what he says. What iniquity have your fathers found in me? Because we abandoned our heritage to want to be like the other nations. What iniquity have your fathers found in me? That they have gone far from me, meaning we walked away from the standards of righteousness to go and follow after those that were working within corruption. And then he said, okay, all right. We talked about this. We laid it all out. It's in the blueprint. If that's the position you'll take, I'm going to move you from being up at the head and I'm going to put you down to being the tail. And since you want to follow after them, I'm going to let them rule over you, even in or to the degree of oppression. But it's temporary, you all. temporary. And then they still have to deal with the atrocities that they've committed against us. He says, they've gone far from me and have walked after vanity and are become vain. So this life and these things we're doing today, you all, these are the sights of vanity. These things that we're doing within all the busy work that we're doing, it's vain. Don't wait for their experts and their professionals to share that with you, right? Thank you all for coming into the live. Tap the screen. That part doesn't cost anything, right? That's how you show your support for the live. I ask you to share the live and repost the live. We're talking about the last days. And that question is, can you not see that these are the last days? Can you not see it? Proverbs 25:4. He says, take away the dross from the silver, and there shall come forth a vessel for the finer. And that's how you look at us. Right now, we're down and dirty. Most folks think we're just no good. But when we're stripped of our corruption and we go to stand on righteousness, then we become like that precious metal, or that thing so desired, pure. He says, take away the wicked from before the king. This is what we're saying for those that are in these rulership positions, high stature, right? If they were to remove themselves from corruption, then things would be different, but they can't. They were born in vain. He says, take away the wicked from the king, and his throne shall be established in righteousness. This is not something the leadership and the rulers of this world can do at this point in time. Those kings and presidents and heads of state, they don't have it within them to walk away from wickedness because they're not the true stewards. But for the true stewards, when you remove that corruption and or wickedness from us, then we're going to reign within righteousness because we are the true stewards of the earth. That's why he said, take away the wicked from before the king. We would be the resemblance of that king, or the people that are the true stewards of the world. So once we stop being malicious, it says, and his throne shall be established in righteousness. Then we can return to our rightful place. But we can't come with the foolishness and think we're going to bring that to be the rulers of the world. No, because a transition is happening, you all. We're leaving the state of corruption and we're moving into that state of perfection. Deuteronomy 29 and 28, you all. 29 and 28. He says, and the Lord rooted them out of their land in anger for us because of our corruption. We were pushed off of our land. We were taken out of power. He says, and in wrath and in great indignation, and cast them into another land as it is this day. And this is what we recognize. For that vast majority of us that are still scattered abroad throughout the diaspora. And because we're scattered abroad, it shows we don't have any strength. We don't have any power like a majority of other people in other nations. They still have a connection either, to their land or to their heritage to where they can bond together. But for the people of God, they are splintered, scattered abroad, as it is to this day. Laughed at, mocked, scorned, ridiculed. Jeremiah 2 and 8, it says, the priest said not, where's the Lord? When you look at these religious institutions today, they're not concerned with the substance of righteousness and God's chosen people coming to the forefront to lead. They have another doctrine. They say, oh, God is going to deal with everybody and we're all going to lead. Y'all, that don't make no sense. It says, but the priests say not, where's the Lord? And they that handle the law knew me not. Again, when you talk about these religious institutions, they're not dealing with the law of righteousness. They're dealing with the laws of the world. They're dealing with pragmatism. They're dealing with motivational speeches. They're dealing with the things that keep you tied in to this world. But to show you specifically what righteousness is and to correct you within error, they won't do it. He said, the pastors also transgress against me. This is happening in real time, you all. He said, and the prophets prophesize by Baal. They prophesize by lies. They prophesize by the things that are happening within this world, like, dealing with governmental, the governmental, all of this, what they have with their secret societies, and they want to talk and or tell you possibly things centered around that. But when it comes to the truth within prophecy, how these things are going to be destroyed, they don't want to talk to you about that. But if it's politically related, then they'll explain it from that standpoint. If it has to deal with your everyday life, then they'll deal with it from that standpoint. They'll prophesy and tell you, you're going to get a house, you're going to get a car, you're going to get some money. But all that stuff is in vain. He says, and walk after things that do not profit. That's the state of religion today. They're teaching people things centered around things that have no value. He says, wherefore I will plead with you. And when he speaks about pleading with you, it ain't like a begging, like a come on, please, y'all. That's not how he pleads. He says, I will plead with you, and with your children's children will I plead. In the sense of his pleading, it's a punishment, even unto a loss of life, that you're going to recognize who you are and what your intent is in this world, or you're useless. Some of us get it, some of us understand it, but according to what's written, a majority of us, we don't get it. We don't understand it. Thank you all for coming into the live. You tap the screen, that part, it doesn't cost anything. That's how you show your support for the live. And you share the live, repost the live. You guys, you can even add it to your stories. So Acts 17 and 11. And again, as we focus on allegory, I'm not reading this from the literal sense. And for some of you, you may feel like, oh, I'm just jumping around from one verse to the next verse. Well, no, I'm using the instruction within the book where he said, if you want knowledge and you want to deal with sound doctrine, he said you have to do precept upon precept. You have to do line upon line, here a little and there a little. And with that, you have to be careful how you build on the foundation. But I want you all to see within the writings, the illustration, it's like the picture that I'm painting. using the oracles of God, showing you that hidden understanding within a parable, within the allegory. And again, looking at how it's applicable in this day and time, that we can know how to use it to change our life today, making it relevant. Acts 17:11, he says, these were more noble than those in Thessalonica. So you have some folks that take this more seriously than others. He says, in that they received the word with all readiness of mind. Some of you hear what I'm saying and you're locked in, you're keyed in, right? You're feeling that new, or you're feeling or understanding, what's happening, right? He said, all the readiness of mind. He said, and search the scriptures daily. So for those of you that are hearing this, right, you are ready to search the scripture to make certain that what I'm talking about and what I'm saying, that these things, are real. Okay? He said, whether so, these things are so. Like, you can't just take my word for it. You can't just take my word for it. You have to make certain that these things are so. So we go to Deuteronomy 29 and number 9. He said, the secret things belong unto the Lord our God. This is what I was talking about. The secret things, right? Excuse me. The secret things. These writings were not meant for everyone to pick up and just understand. There's some secret things, and this is why it's centered around allegory. It's centered around parable. That means you can't just pick it up and read it like a novel and think you're going to get some understanding. The secret things belong unto the Lord our God. But those things which are revealed, that's the part. A number of you can't understand within these writings the magical essence to where it has to be revealed. That part doesn't make sense to a number of you. For certain people, it has to be revealed to where then they can go about and deliver the message. If God ain't revealed it to you, you don't have a message. As with all of your pastors and bishops and ministers within the religious order, they don't have a message. God has not revealed anything to them. Now, some of you may argue and say otherwise, but they don't speak according to the testimony. They don't speak according to the law. They've turned their interest to motivational speaking. They've turned their interest to the things of this world. He said, but the secret things belong to the Lord our God. But those things which are revealed belong to us and our children forever. He says that we may do all the words of this law. This is where I go back to your religious institutions. They've abandoned the law. This is how you know they don't have a message. God is not revealing anything to them. They're learning. Their message comes from the seminary schools. They don't have divine inspiration because they've walked away from the law, which is that element to righteousness. You can't have righteousness without a standard. You all are trying to make righteousness be of a vain substance. What is righteousness without a law, without a process, without a rule that you must abide by in order to be considered righteous? Oh, they don't teach that in the seminary schools. Jeremiah 2:12, he says, be astonished because we've fallen from such a great place. It's an astonishment because we were at one time a great people. He says, be astonished, O ye heavens, at this. He says, and be horribly afraid. Be very desolate, saith the Lord, because we've walked away from the standards of righteousness and now we're desolate. He says, for my people have committed two evils. We walked away from the law and now we commit evil. The religious institutions promote lawlessness. If you talk about the law within the religious institutions today, they tell you that's legalism or something along those lines. But yet when it comes to the standards of the policies, procedures, and the statutes or the laws of the United States, they don't call that legalism. They say, oh yeah, you got to do that. He says, my people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, right? We've forsaken the law that deals with righteousness and have hewn them out cisterns, broken cisterns that cannot hold water, meaning we're now trying to live a spiritual life that's not based on anything. When it comes to that living water, when it comes to that true ideal for righteousness, we've abandoned that within the law. And then they put it on Jesus' name. That's just how corrupt and how chaotic it is. But let's keep going because I have not yet walked away from the scripture. But I am tearing down the imagination of the lies. And I say, these are the last days. And I ask the question, can you not see that these are the last days? And if you do see, then what are you doing about it? How are you preparing yourself? Number 14, he says, is Israel a servant? Meaning, we're not talking about Netanyahu and those imposters over in what they most modernly call the Middle East. We're not talking about them, okay? Is Israel a servant? Is he a homeborn slave? Because we go from one captivity to another captivity. We go from one or a sense of oppression to another degree of oppression. Because we refuse to turn back to the principles within righteousness. We refuse to be governed by a law within righteousness, and we allow for ourselves to be governed through wickedness. We've accepted those principles and we say, we take this thing that is abnormal and we say it's normal. That's pragmatism. That's a sense of American pragmatism, to be more specific. Is Israel a servant, a homeborn slave? Why is he spoiled? We're spoiled because of the captivity. And some folks say, I'm not in captivity. I'm free in Jesus. I'm free in Jesus. All of this stuff is superstition. We are spoiled. We are a destroyed people. We're spoiled and we're destroyed because we have not yet understood the necessity to deal with righteousness. It's like that's just a broad term to a number of folks. We take it lightly. We don't know what it means. It really has no value. Righteousness. Righteousness. Yeah, the righteous brother. But we have to use these words with intent and come to understand there's functionality within it. Otherwise, it is useless. It's just another vain concept. Deuteronomy 28:13. He says, and the Lord shall make thee the head. That's our position, to be the true stewards over the world. See, global warming and, the climate change and the earthquakes and all of these things are in position and are placed because the world is being ruled by the wicked. The true stewards over the world are not in position and or play. Even the earth is revolting. Right? He says, he says, and the Lord shall make thee the head and not the tail. But if we want to be the head and not the tail, because y'all know we the tail. Y'all know we at the bottom of the bottom. But if we want to be the head, we have to walk away from the mannerisms that we've been given within this world, this society. He said, thou shalt be above only. The true stewards of the world shall be above only, but we don't understand what that means. Like, what you talking about? What you mean? Because they got in position right now to where if the Europeans can't rule the world, then there's something that says we're all going to rule it together. And that don't make no sense. Because when you look at the doctrine within religion, they say, Christ come and we're all going to, be in this thing together. And, we're just going to, be living and ruling together. That doesn't make sense. Right now, we have Europeans that are ruling the world. They're running it in the ground. Hands up. No doubt about it. You see it. History tells it for ages and generations. This is just what it is. They are not the true stewards. So, the head, and to be the head always. He said, thou shalt not be beneath. But there's a clause here that in order for us to be the head, we have to do certain things. If we don't do those certain things, then it's saying we go to being the tail. So you all can talk about building black banks and, talk about generational wealth. You could talk about those things all you want. Excuse me. But in a world of corruption and chaos, it's not going to benefit you nothing. It will be a vanity and vexation. Our aim and our goal should be looking to get back to the head, to be the stewards over the entire world, understanding the things that we need to do to work to that goal. He said, and thou shalt not be beneath. Here's the requisite. If thou hearken unto the commandments of the Lord thy God. In Christianity, they say you ain't got to do that. This is how you know those institutions serve the God of this world. Because here we have within the prophecy, within the scripture, it's telling you to be the head and not the tail. It's giving you the instruction. If you don't want to be the tail, he said, hearken to the commandments of the Lord thy God. Hearken to the commandments of righteousness. Do the things within alignment to righteousness. But they say, oh no, you ain't, that's legalism. They say, just confess with your mouth. And then you're going to be saved. That's all you got to do. Look at how many people have confessed with their mouth, and still look at the state of the world today, you all. It ain't working. He said, hearken unto the commandments of the Lord thy God, which I command thee this day to observe and to do them. That whole thing about do them, again, within the standards of the world today, they tell you there's nothing to do but believe. Just believe. It's a vain belief. We have a hardline instruction right here explaining to us, if we don't want to be the tail and we want to return to being the stewards over the world, he says, then this is how we get out of it. We go to number 43. He says, the stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high. You all can't tell me. We watch right here in America, and I'm sure it's happening in other places around the world. We watch other people come, and they seem to get up and they seem to do very well, and it pisses us off. We're mad. But we can only be mad at ourselves. Thank you all for coming into the live. Tap the screen. That part doesn't cost anything. That's how you show your support for the live. You share the live, you repost the live. You all, I am reading out of the Bible, but I'm not dealing with religion. I'm focused on allegory, explaining these hidden things, getting into the parables and making it make sense. Because if you're reading these writings and you're doing it from the standpoint of a literal sense, like you read a novel, you're going to miss so much. It's not going to make sense to you as it should make sense. So we're trying to get it to resonate by pointing out some of the hidden things, showing how these things are applicable to this day. But he says, the stranger that is within thee shall get above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. Is that not our position and our state? We know we're at the bottom of the bottom. Why is that? It says, because we will not hearken to the commandments of our Lord, our God. Their God is the God of this world. Hadn't been able to distinguish like what these differences are. Their God and the things they serve are centered around the men of this world. That's what keeps them in power and opposition. And as long as we chase after that, we'll have no power. Even if you do get a black bank, they still own it. They still control it. Even if you do think you have generational wealth, they will control it. No different than they control a Oprah and a Michael Jordan and a Jay-Z and all these millionaires and billionaires that are out there. They control every single dime that they have. 44, he says, he shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He says, he shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. That's our position. As we talk about prophecy, as we talk about the testimony, that's our position. Folks are coming in and they're getting up above us, and we're upset about it. We see it. And we're still trying to use the same measures or means that they use, thinking we can get ahead in this world by that standard. We have an instruction within a scriptural writing, but they say, we don't want to do that. Right there, we get your business plan and, do these things. Now, mind you, I'm not saying to individuals to not do those things, but if you're not understanding the principles within righteousness, then all of that, what you're doing, is in vain. You're still serving another God. Serving another God, meaning you're living according to a sense of mannerisms that's not aligned with righteousness. The thing you serve is your God. So if you serve in wickedness, then that's your God. He says in 46, he says, and they shall become a sign, and they shall become upon thee for a sign and for a wonder. You all, do you not see it? It is a sign. It is a wonder. When you look at us, it's a wonder and it's a sign. You can see it. He says, and upon thy seed forever. For ages and generations, we've been dealing with this. We've just been choosing a wrong methodology, looking to get above it. And the agents of this world, as long as you're talking about doing anything but turning to righteousness, they cheer you on. They let you get a little headway to make you feel like you're doing something. But if you turn your back on their standards and their ways, and you look to specifically do as these writings are telling us to now learn what the tenets of righteousness are and to focus on the commandments of the Lord our God and to live according to these statutes, these commandments, these customs and these traditions, then they know they're in trouble. Then they understand their world will collapse. Y'all running around and you want to boycott and all those things. You all, that stuff is in vain. The real boycott is righteousness. Understanding what it means and standing 10 toes down on righteousness. If you do that, they can't breathe. Their world will come to an end. He said, and upon thy seed forever. He said, because thou serve not the Lord thy God with all joyfulness. This is what I'm saying. We don't serve righteousness and being happy about it. We're ecstatic about doing some wicked stuff, ill-mannered things, ill-gotten gains. We don't care how we get it, just get the bag. Because thou serve not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart, for the abundance of all things you all. He said, therefore thou shalt serve thine enemy. We don't know who the enemy is. We think everything is everything, everybody is everybody. But if you're paying attention, as I say, these are the last days, can you not see that these are the last days? The testimony, the prophecy, it's telling us, you shall serve your enemy, which the Lord shall send against thee. Because we walk away from the tenets of righteousness, then our plague is that we're going to serve them in hunger. We're going to serve them in want for all things, thirst, for clothing. It said in one of all things, and then it said, and they shall put a yoke of iron upon your neck until they've destroyed you. So to put a yoke of iron upon your neck, I know that's so graphic. But the mental slavery, right? And then it says, until you've been destroyed. It means mentally. And this is what I'm telling you. We're a destroyed people mentally because we don't know how to get back on track with righteousness. We're absorbed, like we're totally engrossed in corruption, in their world. And we're trying to make sense of it, and we're trying to find some good in it, but there's no good that you can pull out of this evil. It's not going to work. Matthew 13 and 9, it says, he who have ears, let him hear. This is why I tell you, tap the screen, you all. That part doesn't cost anything. That's how you show your support for the live. Right? Share the live, repost the live. You can even share it with your stories. But these are the last days. Can you not see that these are the last days? Do you not realize what's happening to us as a people? It's not by accident, but there is a remedy which goes beyond building a black bank and trying to deal with generational wealth. You all are looking at the small picture. The big picture is we are the stewards of the world. The world is sick right now because we've abandoned the steps of righteousness. And we've allowed the wicked and or the corrupt to stand in our place. So this is what we get. If you have ears, let them hear. Understanding what it means to exercise your senses beyond the carnal sense of how we deal with things. Deuteronomy 28:1, he says, and it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently to the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all the commandments. They said, we ain't doing that. They said, we're not fooling with that. They said, that's the white man's religion. You all, this is not a white man's religion. In fact, a white man understands that should we align ourselves within these standards, that they would have no more power over the world. They would be forced at that point to get down and give it up. See, they understand our weakness is within transgressing righteousness. To be a Superman, we can't live in their world of corruption. As long as we're in their world of corruption, we're eating kryptonite. And we keep having these visions of our greatness, but we can't seem to run. We can't seem to fly. He says, if thou hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all the nations on the earth. This goes against the religious doctrine. This goes against what they teach in the seminary schools. That's why they serve the God of this world. They do not deal with the tenets and or the principles which are written in this Bible. Although they're coming out of this Bible, they have a totally separate narrative which is centered around keeping the evil and or the corruption in power, in position, in play. I know this is hard for a number of you to hear, to accept, to understand. But that's what devils do. A devil meaning a deceiver, a trickster. That's what men do. Especially men that have some wealth, prestige, power, or position. They finagle things to fit or fall within their interest. He said, but if we hearken to the voice of the Lord our God, if we hearken to the need of righteousness, and we do these things, then we'll be placed above all the nations. It didn't say some, all the nations on the earth. Like right now, the Europeans are placed above all the nations on the earth. I mean, they boast about being the superpower. They're placed above all the nations on the earth right now in their corruption, in the state of their wickedness. That's their heaven, our hell. To live within righteousness, that's our heaven. That's their hell. Psalms 19 and 11. Moreover, by them, the servant warned. Moreover, by them, the servant warned. So here I am giving a shout out and or trying to let you know this is a warning. These are the last days. Can you not see it? Walk away from unrighteousness. Turn your back on the God of this world. Some folk looking around like, who are you talking to? What are you talking about? I don't know. Don't make no sense to me. And there are a number of you, you're locked in. You know exactly where I'm going or where this is going. You know what I'm talking about. He says, moreover, by them is thy servant warned. Again, the servant is looking at what do you serve? Do you serve corruption and evil, or do you serve righteousness? He says, moreover, by them is thy servant warned. And in keeping of them, there is great reward. So when he says the servant is warned, and in keeping of them is great reward, he's saying you're warned to stay away from wickedness, unrighteousness. But if you keep the standards of the commandments, if you keep the principles within righteousness, he says there's great reward. You all, I'm dealing with allegory. Excuse me. I'm going into the parable. I'm sharing with you what the bishops and the ministers and the pastors have not shared with you for ages and generations. Because they are not the messengers of our God. They are the messengers for the God of this world. And I know that's hard for a lot of you to hear, because some of you in this room, you're still getting ready for your Sunday service. Deuteronomy 28 and number 2. He says, and all these blessings shall come on thee and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God. That's the requisite. So now we have to understand, what does it mean to hearken unto the voice of the Lord our God? What is this righteousness stuff that you're talking about? Now you have to do your search. Now you have to look at what it means to be committed, because they don't have institutions out here to teach you righteousness. But the prophecy, but the law states, if you want it sincerely within your mind, if you want it, just ask for it. And when you ask for it, prepare yourself to study, to then understand that you can find it, because they don't have any institutions to give you this understanding. You then have to align yourself with individuals that are of the like mind, because they don't have support systems for this. They're trying to get rid of people such as myself and others that are waking people up. Using the dynamic scripture and or the prophecy or the testimony in a manner and a way that you've never heard before. Matthew 13:10, he says, and the disciples came and said unto him, talking about Jesus. The disciples came and they asked Jesus, they asked him, why speak thou unto them in parables? See, in the religion, they want you to think, Jesus was just outright and everybody understood it and let the scripture speak. And no, it's a code. It's a parable. It's an allegory. It's in secret. It's not something that's meant for a whole world, the entire world to understand. It depends on which world you're talking about. There's a difference within the world of righteousness and this world of wickedness. There's a God of this world, and then we have the God within the world of righteousness. But here you have Christ talking to his disciples, and they're asking, why do you speak to the people in parables? Why don't you just make it plain? As I'm saying to you, if you're dealing with this from the sense of being literal, you don't understand. And this is why your ministers, your bishops, and your pastors, they don't understand because they can only give you a literal sense. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. Everything they learned came from a seminary school. It's a different type of program and or indoctrination. That's all it is. He answered and said unto them, talking about these parables that he speak, these allegories that are in position and or place, this secret message that he's putting out there. He said, because it is given to you to know the mysteries, the secrets of the kingdom of heaven. You're supposed to know the secrets of righteousness because you're going to be the ones to run it, not them. He says, but to them it is not given. Everybody is not a child of God, which they want you to think anybody. All you got to do is confess with your mouth, and you too are a child of God. These things are superstition. You can confess with your mouth. But once you confess with your mouth, you better understand who within the people that you are, and then to be committed to doing the work. But if you think you're just going to confess with your mouth and then just sit back and watch the show, you're mistaken. But again, he said it's not for them, it's for you. So everybody can't confess with their mouth. If you're not of the you that he was talking about, then you're of the them that it doesn't apply to. And the religion within Christianity, they reject that. And this is why they serve the God of this world. And we're not dealing with religion. Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism, those things are made up. Isaiah 16 and number 5, you all. And in mercy shall the throne be established. Y'all pay attention. And in mercy shall the throne be established. And he shall sit upon it in truth. Right now, you all, the throne of this world, it doesn't deal in mercy, and it sure doesn't function within truth. Thank you all for coming into the live. Tap the screen, you all. That part doesn't cost anything. That's how you show your support for the live. Share the live, repost the live. Okay. You can even add it to your stories, right? So he says, and he shall sit upon it in truth in the tabernacle of David. Okay. Again, this is allegory. Like you all are trying to read this literally and it just goes over your head. But a tabernacle of David, that's a memorial. It's going to always be and known and understood that this is how we will look at it. He said, judging and seeking judgment and hasting righteousness. There that word is again. So within the tabernacle of David, like they call it the halls of justice in America, maybe. And their halls of justice are just full of injustice. But within the tabernacle of David, which would be that comparable to what you may identify with the hall of justice, that's where you'll have judgment. That's where you'll have righteous ruling taking place. Something we're not too familiar with. There are two systems of, there are two judicial systems in America. And I'm sure around the world it's centered and are set up in a similar fashion where they deal with the honor of men. Matthew 13 and 33. Another parable spake he unto them. He said, the kingdom of heaven is like unto leaven. And this is why I'm focused on revealing the parables to you all so that it can make sense to you. So that you can understand how to then turn around and use these words to motivate you, not a motivational speech. Looking at the scripture, looking at the testimony, and using that to uplift yourself, because therein lie the principles to righteousness. The kingdom of heaven is like unto leaven, which a woman took and hid in 3 measures of meal, till the whole loaf was leavened. All these things spake Jesus unto the multitude in parables, and without parables spake he not unto them. So here is Christ expressing to this big old crowd, he's telling them the kingdom of heaven is like a loaf, is like leaven, which a woman took and put into a loaf. So all it's saying is, when righteousness come into place, into position, it's going to take over the whole world. Evil and corruption will decrease and decease. All those things he spoke unto the multitude. But again, remember, within the parable, it wasn't something that was meant for everybody to understand. But for those that are positioned to be the stewards of the world in righteousness, they need to know this. Psalms 37 and 17. He says, for the arm of the wicked shall be broken. As I'm saying, these are the last days. Can you not see that these are the last days? Do you not understand that God is not going to make America great again? Can you not see that this world in decline, it just can't sustain and or keep going? Like that parable about the leaven, putting it in the loaf. Once it expound, it's spreading. Righteousness is going to overtake the world. Here he says, the arm of the wicked shall be broken. Psalms 37:17. He said, but the Lord uphold the righteous. This world is ending, but the Lord will uphold the righteous. Number 18, the Lord knows the days of the upright. As we sit back and we suffer at this day and time because we were born in the world of corruption, we've been made addicted to the sentence of unrighteousness. We're weaning ourselves. Some can do it cold turkey. For others, it's a process, but we have to pull away. He said, but the Lord knows the days of the upright. For all of what we're going through and the suffering that we're dealing with right now, the Lord knows the days of the upright, and their inheritance shall be forever. This is just temporary, you all. It's a test, in other words. Who's going to turn to righteousness? As he say, come out of her, my people, that you receive none of her plagues. But the question is, are you his people? Isaiah 9 and number 6, as I'm dealing with you in revealing the parable, I'm sharing with you the allegory, something your bishops, your ministers, and your pastors have not done for ages and generations. They have not been able to explain these verses to you based on the parable. They've only dealt with you in a flawed, literal sense of their guided understanding through the seminary schools and their doctrine. Isaiah 9 and 6, he says, for a child is born unto us, a son is given. The government shall be upon his shoulders. We're talking about a nation being ruled within righteousness and how we're going to grow up into this thing. He said, and his name shall be called Wonderful. Now, I'm talking to you about the parable. I'm giving you the sense of the allegory. This is talking about a government and how the government is going to be ran. Within that government, it will be known to be wonderful. Counselor, meaning you can get good counsel from within this government and those who run it. The mighty God. This government will be ruling and running within righteousness. The mighty God meaning the thing that you serve, the thing that you do. The everlasting Father, understanding that these tenets within righteousness, they come from that everlasting Father. This is the government. He says, the Prince of Peace. Within this government, it will have the tenets, the rudiments of peace. This is the allegory within understanding how to look at this verse, that we make it make sense for our life today to know how we should stand within righteousness. Matthew 13 and 13. Therefore speak I unto them in parables. This is why folks have not understood these writings. And for some of you, you've read the Bible 5 times over, and it made no sense. Because it's parables. It's allegory. It's hidden. And for some of you, it don't matter how much I break it down. You're not going to get it. But for those of you that are meant to hear it, you hear it. And that's who I'm talking to. He says, therefore speak I to them in parables, because they seeing, see not. So a whole lot of corrupt people in the audience. They don't give a damn about what I'm talking about. As I ask, these are the last days. Can you see that these are the last days? They don't know what you're talking about, right? He said, because they see not, and hearing, they hear not, neither do they understand. Because within the sense of the parable, it's not meant for everybody to understand. Within the sense of the allegory, it's not meant for everybody to understand. The multitude are born in vain, according to what's written. Psalm 37:20. He said, but the wicked shall perish. This is what I'm telling you. These are the last days. The wicked shall perish. Can you not see that these are the last days? The testimony is telling us, and these words stand true, the wicked shall perish. God is not going to make America great again, whatever that means. The wicked shall perish, and the enemies of the Lord shall be as the fat of the lamb, meaning they'll just be sacrificed. I know that's hard for you to hear because the religion, it has spoiled the minds of the people by telling them Christ is coming to love everybody. But everything I see with here in this book, when it talks about a return of a Christ or a Savior, he's coming to destroy the wicked. But here it says, the wicked shall perish, and the enemies of the Lord shall be as the fat of lambs. They shall consume. He says, into smoke shall they consume away. You all, we're preparing ourselves for a world of righteousness. You either get ready for it or get in line with the wicked to perish. Those are the only two options. Matthew 15:14, he says, let them alone. Let them alone. They be blind leaders of the blind. All these world leaders and all these rich, wealthy, affluent folks, leave them alone. They don't have any knowledge. Well, they have knowledge. They have the knowledge of unrighteousness. They don't have the wisdom pertaining to righteousness. But he said, leave them alone. They are the blind leaders of the blind. And if the blind lead the blind, he said, they're all going to fall in the ditch. Because he said, the wicked are going to perish. Isaiah 9 and number 7. He says, of the increase of his government, because the wicked are going to perish. And like that leaven that was put in the loaf, the parable that we just read, and how it spread, that's going to be the increase of the government that we call Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Of this government, it's going to increase. He said, in peace, there shall be no end. See, you have these folks today creating a board of peace, and all of this stuff is in vain. If they could produce peace, they would have produced it by now. But all they produce is more war, more bloodshed, more lies, more theft, more deceit. You can't deny it. You know it to be true. You may be trying to convince yourself that it's going to get better, but it's not. This thing is sliding down a hill and fast. Of the increase of his government in righteousness and peace, there shall be no end. Upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth and forever. Righteousness is going to rule. Now, I don't know about you, but right now you should be cheering. You should be clapping. You should be happy that righteousness is going to come in and rule forever. No more pain, no more sorrow, no more death, no more polluted food, no more polluted air, no more destruction within the earth. A proper order. He says, and henceforth forever. Then he says, the zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this, meaning those men, those women within the order of the saints, we will be standing in alignment to make certain that we protect the interest of righteousness. Psalms 37 and 27. He says, depart from evil. He said, and do good and dwell forevermore. Because if you stand with the wicked, he said, you're going to perish. So we receive the warning which says, depart from evil and do good. What does do good mean? Have we scrutinized yet what good is? Or have we conflated it? All within, the compromise of the pragmatism to just living within the standard of this world. It's all good, everything good. Depart from evil. See, we have to measure what evil is. We have to measure what good is. They don't have institutions within society today that teach these things. But in the writing, he said, if you want to know, just ask. And then once you just ask, you have to prepare yourself to commit to hang in there long enough to get your answer. This is not Jippy Pop, where you're going to get some instant gratification, because this is for those that are serious at heart and mind. Ain't no turning back type thing to the blood. He said, depart from evil and do good and dwell forevermore. For the Lord loved judgment. He says, and forsake not his saints. He said, they are preserved forever. See, we may have it rough and it may be hard right now, but we're preserved forever. As we look at the iniquity of our fathers, as we look at the iniquity within ourselves, and we search out the principles within righteousness, we can overcome. But for the wicked, there is no overcoming. They just wicked. And for them, they're going to perish. And for those of us that have an opportunity to turn to righteousness but refuse to do it, then we side with the unrighteous, and we receive the reward of the wicked. Thank you all for coming into the live. All right, tap the screen. That part doesn't cost anything. That's how you show your support for the live. You share the live, repost the live. You can even add it to your stories. So he says, they are preserved forever, talking about his saints. He said, but the seed of the wicked shall be cut off. Y'all, this ain't no game. This ain't no joke. These are the last days. Can you see that these are the last days? The seed of the wicked shall be cut off. There's a seed for the wicked, and there's a seed of the righteous. Everybody is not a child of God. That's why we have things working and moving the way it is today. But those that are of the seed of righteousness, we're waking up, realizing we've been acting within the wrong manifold. Something ain't right. We feel it. We know it. But we weren't taught within our systems of education or within the societal institutions. We weren't given the things that lead us to the true sense of what righteousness is. But we found it. Because that's the promise of the Creator, that we will find it. Now we have to discern the sense to now commit. Make the decision to serve righteousness. Because the life within corruption, you all, it's an addiction. It's the worst addiction ever. First of all, because most of you didn't even know. You were addicted to the corruption. You are addicted to a life of sin. You're addicted to serving your lust. Trained that way from birth. It's the worst addiction ever, but we can overcome it. He says, the righteous shall inherit the land and dwell therein forever. The righteous will inherit the earth. As we're watching the world of the wicked, we're watching it collapse. We're watching it come to its end. Matthew 13:14, he says, and in them is fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah, which say, by hearing ye shall hear and shall not understand, and by seeing ye shall, and seeing ye shall see. He says, and shall not perceive. So you have those that are looking at this, listening to this, they don't get it. And no matter how much you break it down, they're just not going to get it. But James 1:25, he's saying, we'll come back to that in Matthew. But James 1:25, he said, but whoso look into the perfect law of liberty, because we're looking at those that are seeing this, they're hearing this, but they're just not able to catch up with what they need to do or how they need to do it. So here he gives us a clue. He said, look at the perfect law of liberty. But within the seminary schools and within the religious institutions, they've abandoned the perfect law of liberty. And this is coming up about in the New Testament. It talks about the perfect law of liberty, but yet in the modern institutions of religion today, they tell you to abandon the perfect law of liberty. They say that's legalism because they serve the God of this world. They have another doctrine. But follow me, you all. He said, but whosoever look into the perfect law of liberty and continue therein. This is why I said, if you want to know, you just have to ask. But once you ask, you need to be ready to go 10 toes down. You have to continue therein. I didn't just wake up like this. I had to go through years to prove myself that I'm committed. And for some of you, you may not have the patience, but that's on you. But here he says, and continue therein, being not a forgetful hearer. He said, but a doer of the work. That's the part. A doer of the work. Within the tenets of the seminary schools and within the religion, there is no work they say you have to do. Their doctrine and this doctrine, it's different. But the perfect law of liberty is asking you to continue into it, to be committed, to not be a forgetful hearer, but to be a doer of the work. He said, this man shall be blessed in his deeds. We go back to Matthew 13 and 15. He said, for this people's heart is waxed gross, talking about those who can't see it, can't hear it, not having it. Their heart is waxed gross, and their ears are dull of hearing. This goes into the prophecy that Isaiah was stating. Their ears are dull of hearing, and their eyes, they have closed. This is why I said about exercising your senses to see beyond just those carnal things, because if all you see are the carnal things, your eyes are closed, although you see something. Their eyes are closed. He said, least at any time they should see with their eyes and hear with their ears on a higher level, exercising your senses beyond the carnal sense of how we deal with them. He said, and should understand with their heart, meaning your mind. Here it is, and should be converted. Converted into what? We're not talking about Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism. This would be converted into perfection, dealing with the standards of righteousness. He said, and should be converted. The perfect law of liberty will assist you in being converted. He said, and I should heal them. Remember, we just talked about the addiction and how we would want that antidote. It's the perfect law of liberty. This is the thing that will help us to convert our minds, and it will heal us. That ties into Psalms 19 and 7. The law of the Lord is perfect. That's the perfect law of liberty. Converting the soul. That's the thing that will heal you. That's how we rid ourselves off of the addiction, our addiction to corruption. He said the testimony of the Lord is sure, talking about the prophecy. Making wise the simple. We come to understand the prophecy, you all, now we become wise. In understanding the things centered around righteousness, because they don't have any institutions out here to help us understand these things. So our faith, it has to come by hearing, and the hearing according to the word of God, the standards of righteousness. He said, the statutes of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandments of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. So the perfect law of liberty is the antidote over the addiction. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. This is the thing that will heal you. It's not going to convert you into no Christianity, Catholicism, and or Judaism. We're not dealing with anyone's religion. But we are looking to remove ourselves from a real world evil and unrighteousness to place ourselves within the center of righteousness. Matthew 3:5, he says, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Thank you all for coming into the live. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Parable, allegory, hidden meaning, secret. Let's talk about it. Who is this poor in spirit? That's all of us. We're poor in spirit because we're addicted to wickedness. We're poor in our spirit. But when we stand for righteousness, now we can inherit the kingdom of heaven. We don't have to know everything, but we will become to know everything. But that poor in spirit, this is the one that's going to inherit the kingdom because he's going to enrich himself. He's going to build himself up to where now he can inherit the entire earth. Matthew 13:31, another parable. He says, another parable put he forth unto them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a grain of a mustard seed. All of these parables, you all of these hidden meanings, all of this talking in code, and you wonder why, for the ages and generations, you were not able to understand. You were not able to understand these writings. If it's not revealed, then how can you know? How can he preach unless he be sent? Another parable put forth unto them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a grain of a mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in his field, which indeed is the least of all seeds, but when it was grown, it is the greatest among herbs, and become a tree, you all, so that the birds of the air are come and lodge in the branches thereof. You get it? Righteousness is going to be that thing that even those that were the poor in spirit will be able to thrive in. And the entire world, once righteousness is released into the world, it's going to be that thing that all life will come to for substance. Ezekiel 25 and number 8. Thus say the Lord God. Oh, and we're going now into how these other nations and these other people have dealt with the chosen people of God and how they're going to have to pay. They're going to have to pay for what they've done. They're going to have to pay for how they've dealt with the chosen people of the Creator. Right? He said, because that Moab and Seir, Moab talking about the Chinese and Seir talking about the Europeans. He said, behold, the house of Judah is like unto all the heathen. So that's what they're saying. They're saying, look at God's chosen people. They have fallen now. We have them right where we need them. They're just like all the rest of the heathen. And they think for that reason that they are now winning. Right? Genesis 49 and number 8, you all. It says, Judah, thou art whom thy brethren shall praise. See, when you look at the other nations, they're like, tear them down, bring them down. Look at them. They're not worthy to be praised. They're like all the other heathen. But we can turn to righteousness and raise ourselves up. But here he says, Judah, thou art whom thy brethren shall praise. Somebody has to be at the forefront, you all. There's order and leadership into everything, including this world. It's amazing. You can accept it when you see the Europeans rule. But when we get to talking from the standpoint of this allegory and understanding how righteousness is going to be delivered within this world, you just can't seem to wrap your head around there being leadership. But he says, Judah, thou art whom thy brethren shall praise. He said, thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemy, making certain that there's no acceptance to wickedness in the world ever again. So Judah, hand is going to be on the neck of the enemy. He said, thy father's children shall bow down before thee. This is how it's written based on a perfect order. Why do you have a problem, a number of you? For understanding that order. It's amazing. You live in this disorder and you think you're functioning and though you try to give it within an adherence of your best ability. But here, he said, thy father's children shall bow down before thee. Number 10, he says, the scepter shall not depart from Judah. In the world of righteousness, you all, Judah is going to rule the world in righteousness. They will be the head of leadership. We don't use that terminology anymore today, and we have all these other nomenclatures and things that we talk about, but these are the last days. Can you not see that these are the last days? All of the imagination and or the things that we know within the world of wickedness it will be no more. There will be another standard within understanding and or the knowledge of righteousness will permeate throughout all the world. And Judah will have the scepter. It will not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come. He says, and unto him shall the gathering of the people be. So we're here and we're working to move ourselves back to righteousness, to be a part of that gathering to where the government of the world will be centered around total righteousness without wickedness, putting the other nations back in their position and or their place to, again, just make certain we have peace on earth. What's wrong? Y'all don't want peace on earth? You mad because you don't get to choose who's going to be at the head of the peace on earth? Well, you didn't get to choose who's going to be at the head of the corruption, but we're in it. Jeremiah. And I'm coming to the end, you all. So here's Jeremiah 49 and 2. Therefore, behold, the day comes, saith the Lord, that I will cause an alarm of war to be heard in Rabbah of the Amorites. And again, I'm just talking about all these other nations. And the Amorites would be in alignment to the Japanese. See, all the nations of the world have taken their part in stepping on our backs, on our necks, on our heads. Because we became the tail. That's a part of our punishment. And it's okay, because now we understand where we went wrong. And you can build all the black banks you want, and you can talk about all this generational wealth you want. You're going to remain the tail until you bring yourself to understand what the commandments are within righteousness, that we can stand on that to be raised above all the other nations. There's no black bank that's going to give you power. That's just going to make you more of a different type of slave. See, to have a black bank, all you have an abundance of the paper with the pictures of the slave masters on it. That's all you got. So they still control you. You don't have the perfect law of liberty. You're not converted from a sense of wickedness to the standard of righteousness. You're just moving from one vain position into another, where now you're adding money, thinking that's going to be your way out into freedom. This is why we must be converted, because we don't understand how to remove ourselves from the corruption. Knowing that the law of the Lord is perfect. That's the thing that's going to convert our soul and lift us up. He says, I will cause, he said, I will cause an alarm of war to be heard in Rabbah of the Amorites, right? And it shall be a desolate heap, because all of these nations are going to pay for what they've done to God's chosen people. I read the verse before where he said, all of them that have touched his people, they're going to be devoured, or there is judgment that's going to come upon them. It's not my wanting and or me looking for this to happen. I'm just explaining based on what's written. These are the things that they will not talk about or touch on within the seminary schools. He says, and her daughters shall be burned with fire. The other nations are going to reap their judgment. They're not getting away, you all. Yeah, we're on the bottom. We suffer the most. But as this world of corruption and wickedness end, and these things and this thing turn around, see, that's the thing that they're fighting so profusely to prevent. Because they know upon the ushering in of righteousness, they got to deal with all of the disturbance that they've created within the corruption. Her daughters shall be burnt with fire. He said, then shall Israel be heir unto them that were his heirs, saith the Lord. Meaning, we come now into our point, or into our position of being heirs, to being the rulers over the world. Some people mad as hell about that, because the white man won't be able to rule the world no more. But look at what he's doing to it. And then within the religion of Christianity, they got you thinking it's going to be a hodgepodge of people that's going to take to the rulership of the world in harmony and peace. But there's a set people that is considered to be heirs to this standard of rulership in righteousness. Why are you mad, a number of you, about who's going to be in the seat of righteousness? You should be more concerned with the fact that finally we'll have some peace. We'll have some resolve. Romans 8:16. It said the Spirit itself bear witness with our spirit. So for a number of you with what I'm talking about, your spirit don't bear witness. And again, I'm just not talking to you. The Spirit itself bear witness with our spirit that we are the children of God. And if children, then heirs. Heirs of God and joint heirs with Christ. If so be that we suffer with him, that we may also be glorified together. So let me go back and look at that from the standpoint of allegory, hidden meaning. So your spirit has to bear witness, first of all, to the principles of righteousness. This would align you to be in accordance with the seed of the children of God. Because if you're not of that seed and you're of the seed of evil, again, you can confess with your mouth all you want. John 15:16, the Creator says, I chose you. You didn't choose me. But you got folks running around here thinking they got a say in the matter. He said, I chose you. You didn't choose me. Furthermore, you go to Ephesians 1:4, and he said, this was done before the foundation of the earth ever was. So here, this spirit that has to bear witness is a part of this seed. These are the heirs meant to rule this entire earth in righteousness. He says, and if children, if you're of the seed, then you have a rightful claim. He said heirs of God, meaning heirs of righteousness. And joint heirs. So it's not just one individual. We're joint heirs with Christ. We're now sharing in this righteousness together to run the government. He says, if we that suffer with him, that we might also glorify with him. We suffer with him, meaning in this world of corruption, in this world of wickedness, oh man, we get towed out the frame for talking this righteous stuff. But if we stand 10 toes down on it, then just as righteousness is glorified, then we too will be uplifted and have the fame of righteousness together. Ecclesiastes 4 and number 1. He says, so I returned and considered all the oppressions that are done under the sun. I'm telling you, these people are not getting away with what they've done. I don't care what lies they have told you within the seminary schools. They're going to be judged for what has happened within this world of corruption. And don't think we'll get a free pass. He said, we're going to be judged too. However, we'll still be put into position once we're judged and once we're cleaned up. We'll be positioned to move within the seat of government. But everybody is going to be judged for their corruption. But some will be allowed to be cleaned up to take their rightful place and or position. He said, and considered all the oppressions that are done under the sun. He said, and behold, the tears of such as were oppressed. Hold on, y'all. It's not going to last. God is not going to make America great again. whatever that means. He said, and they had no comforter. As long as we're functioning within the tenets of unrighteousness, we don't have a comforter. Our comforter, our protection is in the house of righteousness. As it said, you wrestle not with flesh and blood. We wrestle with these principles in high places. He said, and they had no comforter. And on the side of their oppressor, there was power. But they had no comforter. Thank you all for coming into the live. I say you tap the screen. That part doesn't cost anything. That's how you show your support for the live. Share the live, repost the live, right? But on the side of the oppressor was power. On the side of corruption and wickedness, we see strength, we see might, and they boast. But for those of us that know and understand this isn't right, we have no comforter. And we don't have a comforter, again, because we're walking, listening, learning, and doing in all the wrong areas. If we turn our attention, as he said, if you hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God to do all the commandments, he said, then we will be put on high. That's where we would find our comfort. We find oppression in following after their standards, their policies, their procedures, their customs, their traditions. We are oppressed. Some of you are so sick, you say you're not oppressed. And that's because we have been spoiled and we have become destroyed. But if you can't see it, if you can't hear it, it's okay. I already understand. If it's hid from them that deal with the God of this world. It's okay. Everybody can't be a child of God. None are lost but the son of perdition. I have no control over it. Second Ezra 15 and 51. I'm going to read down to 54, and then I'm going to close out with 2 Corinthians. Thank you all for coming into the live. Right? He said, thou shalt be weakened as a poor woman with stripes. This is talking about that wicked. Those that are so powerful right now within all of the oppression that they press down on people. They're going to be weakened. As I'm telling you, these are the last days. And I ask the question, can you not see that these are the last days? He said, thou shalt be weakened as a poor woman with stripes, and as one chastened with wounds, so that the mighty and lovers shall not be able to receive thee. They're going to fall from their position of grace and power. He said, would I with jealousy have so proceeded against thee, saith the Lord? He said, if thou had not always slain my chosen. This is what I'm telling you. All those other nations, all those other people, for all of what they've done, you all, it's okay. because they are going to be judged for what they've done to the chosen. It's unfortunate some of the chosen don't even know they're the chosen. But in these writings, it say that they've taken crafty counsel. And they've said, hey, let us come together and make sure these people never become a nation again. And they mean that. It's written within the halls of the FBI here in America. The greatest threat to national security is that you have my people come together in unity. They've made us the enemy. And for that, you want us to love and work with them after they've labeled us an enemy? They're not going to give, any leeway to someone who they think is an enemy. They oppress the enemy. So I have no love for the oppressor. And if you're wise, neither would you. Because their day, their time has come to its end. He said, if thou had not always slain my chosen, exalting the stroke of thine hand, like they're like doing this and like, look at us, we're so mighty, we're so strong. Nobody can stop us. And saying over their dead, when thou was drunken, meaning the poison that they've put in our minds. He said, when thou were drunken, he says, set forth the beauty of thy countenance. It's like they poison our minds and then they stand up and act like we're so great. The beauty of their countenance, like, look at us. This is why I say would I with jealousy have so proceed against thee? Look at what you're doing to my chosen. I gotta come get you. I have to make an example out of you and show those that I've chosen I still love you. 2 Corinthians 6:16 and down to 18. And these are the last verses for today. Thank you all for coming into the live. He says, and what agreement have the temple of God with idols? So why would we, if we're focused on righteousness, why would we be concerned with dealing with their policies and their procedures? He said, for ye are the temple of the living God. Those that are chosen, those that are of the seed, we're that temple of the living God, to be transformed from this terrestrial flesh to a celestial flesh, from a dead state to a state of immortality. Some folks know what I'm talking about. A number of you don't. But some of you talk about a higher vibration. The higher vibration is a celestial flesh. But how do you get there? You can't get there off of any of the writings and or things that they've positioned to us within this world, because they don't talk and or teach as it pertains to the tenets of righteousness. You can't ascend to a higher vibration or a celestial flesh dealing with the knowledge that they've given us through this sense of education and or worldly understanding. It doesn't benefit them. They made certain to keep these things far, far away from our understanding. But it's still available. He said, ye are the temple of the living God. We're the temple of that righteousness. We're the ones that are the true stewards of the earth to rule the earth in perfection, without the pollutants. He said, I will dwell in them, righteousness. I will dwell in them and walk in them, righteousness. We will be the personification of that righteousness. Like when you look at these Europeans today, they are the personification of that evil. He says, and I will be their God. Righteousness will be our guidance. And they shall be my people. We will serve in righteousness. Wherefore come out from among them. Again, he's saying, he's asking, he's telling you, it's a warning. Come from out from among them. He says, and be ye separate. Y'all still trying to go register to vote and want to, build your banks and want to establish their democracy. He's telling you it's going to collapse. These are the last days, and I'm asking, can you see that these are the last days? But we have the writing that's giving us the warning within the testimony. This is a testimony of antiquity, and it still stands to this very day. Be ye separate. He said, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you. Touch not the unclean thing. What's the unclean thing? Those things that we have been raised up in, within the corruption. Turn away from those things, from that understanding. We're now looking to renew our mind, our understanding, with a new sense of knowledge that has nothing to do with the pragmatism that they've raised us up on. He says, and I will receive you and will be a father unto you. And you shall be my sons and daughters, saith the Almighty. So I will be a father unto you, and you will be my sons and daughters, saith the Almighty. This is us living within harmony, within righteousness. As we look at these words in a different manner, outside of that literal sense, and we come to see within a parable or within an allegory, bringing out these hidden meanings, that we can make these words ring true for us in this day, that we can use them to strengthen ourselves. Because the religions do not have the intent and or the will to give us that strength. In here it told and or it said, the perfect law of liberty. This is the thing that we should strive for. Being able to identify what that is. Because people today have all sorts of philosophies and vain deceit that they're pushing around, trying to say that these things need to be considered. But the perfect law of liberty, this is the thing that will convert our soul. This is the thing that will raise our vibration. This is the thing that will move us from the tail and put us to the head. Not building black banks, not trying to amass generational wealth. Those things will keep us in servitude within our oppression. He said, come out. He said, separate. Come out from amongst her, my people, that you receive none of her plagues. But again, that question, it is, are you his people? And I'm going to close with that right there, I want to thank you all for coming in. I see we had a lot of newcomers, into the discussion today. I appreciate you all for coming in. I appreciate all the follows, the likes, the sharing, the reposting. There's a link on my page right under where it says Saturday at 11 o'clock. Right under there, you click that link. It'll take you to the YouTube channel. That's where you'll get to see the series, Prophecy 2026. This video right here is a part of that series. In fact, there's a playlist on that channel. If you want to find all of the series for Prophecy 2026, you get that playlist. You can jump around, or you can start from the very first one and work your way, all the way up. But these videos will be posted there. If you missed anything, just go to the site. I have this video posted up within a few hours, most High willing, right? And you can share it with your family. You can share it with your friends. Make sure you subscribe, to the channel as well. All right. I'm going to let you all go so you can enjoy the rest of your Sabbath on this day. Most High willing, we'll be back on the following Saturday, 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We try to do this like, clockwork. Where is it again? The link is on my page. It's on my page when you go to my profile. Right under where it says Saturday at 11 a.m. You'll see a link. Just click that link. It'll take you right to the YouTube channel. You can subscribe to the channel there. All right? All right, so shalom. Peace, everybody.